Hey y'all, how you doing today? You know, it's fall, it's cold here in Illinois, and I just want to do nothing but sit, drink a cup of tea, and avoid all of my responsibilities, but I'm an adult and I'm going to instead avoid them by making coasters. So let's go. What you'll need: some yarn, a couple crochet hooks, and a pair of scissors. So you can use a couple different crochet hooks depending on how big you want your coasters to be. So this is a standard H hook, and I use it to make these smaller sized coasters. So if you want a coaster that's, a little bit smaller in size, you can go ahead and use a smaller hook. If you want to use a bigger hook like this one, this is an I hook, which is just one size up. You can go ahead and use this hook and it'll make a little bit larger of a coaster. H hook is the smaller hook, and this is the one I prefer using when I crochet coasters, but I'm going to use the larger I hook today just because I think it's easier to see what's happening when you use a larger hook. So depending on what you want to do, you can use different sizes. So to get started, it's really simple. I'm just going to take my yarn here and I'm going to go ahead and make a loop, a slip knot by taking the end of my yarn here. And I'm going to wrap it around my finger once. I'm going to cross it over. And then I'm going to take it here on the top and take this one that's above and pull it over the one underneath and then just pull it through. And it makes a slip knot. So I am going to insert my hook and I'm going to just pull the slip knot a little bit tighter around that hook. So this is going to be our first stitch. So I'm going to do 6. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so that's just called chaining a row. And I'm going to then, to make it a circle, I'm going to take my hook and insert it into that first stitch. So you can see now it kind of resembles a U. And then you're going to want to hold the tail out of the way just for now. It's, I know, a lot to do with your hands. It's really complicated sometimes, but you'll get it eventually. And then you're going to just hook the live end of the yarn and pull it through both loops. So now you have a circle, just a nice little circle here. And we're going to go ahead to start off. We start off every row by chaining 3, just like we did to start off our loop. So here's where things get a little bit more complicated. We're going to do a double stitch, and to do so, we are going to take our yarn here and loop it behind the needle and then up so it hooks a little bit. And then we're going to take the hook straight down through the center of this hole here that we created when we made our loop. And then it's going to come up through. So this is the point where this end of the tail, if it gets mixed up in here, it's not that big of a deal. It's a little bit easier to see what you're doing if you are able to hold it out of place, but if you can't, that's totally fine. So now that our hook is through the center of the loop here, we're going to hook the yarn and pull it back through the center. And what that does is it creates 3 loops on our needle here. So now we're going to go ahead and hook the yarn again, and we're going to pull it through the first 2 loops but not the last loop. So now we're left with 2 loops on here. And then we're going to go ahead and hook the yarn again and then pull it through the last 2 loops. And that creates a stitch here, and that is called a double stitch. So I'm going to show it to you again. We're going to loop over, behind and over the needle. We're going to go through the center here, and then we're going to hook the yarn and pull it back through the center. Then we're going to hook the yarn again and pull it through the first 2 loops. And then we're going to hook it again and pull it through both loops. So now we have 2 next to each other. We're going to continue this until we have 12 in total. So right now we have 3. So we're going to do it 9 more times. I messed it up. Ahaha! This is perfect. So if you mess up, like I just did, what you can do is pull your needle out as far as you need to. If you need to pull it all the way out, that's okay too. And then gently pull on the live end until you get to a point where you understand what is happening. So I just pulled out that whole loop that I just did because I don't know what happened there. So you can do that and then just continue again, going back through and doing what you just did. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, one more. Ah, I lost count. That's my bad. All right, so when you get here where you have all 12, you will want to join the circle by just taking your needle and you're going to put it underneath this loop here. So this is the first stitch that we did, the chain 3. And if you pull them apart a little bit, you can see there's a gap here. So you're going to put your needle straight through that gap. Then you're going to hook your yarn and pull it through both circles, just like we did when we made the original chain. And now you have a slightly larger loop than the one you started with. Ignore my little tail, I got it all tangled up in there. Okay, so to start the next row, we are going to chain 3 again. 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to start off with that double stitch that we were doing before, and we're going to put it in this first gap here. 3. Okay, so to continue on, we are going to then chain 2. After we chain 2, we are going to start off another double stitch. And if you look here, you can see this is one of the double stitches from the last row, and there is another gap next to it when you pull the 2 double stitches apart. That's where we're gonna go. So then we're gonna go ahead and double stitch through there and chain 2. So now we're going to go ahead and continue that. We're gonna pull apart the next double stitches. So we have a gap. And then we're going to double stitch through there. And again, we're going to chain 2, maybe, if I can do it. Chain 2, pull apart our double stitches, and go ahead and go like so. So you can see here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 double stitches that I've done so far. We're gonna go and do 12 again, 1 in each gap. So when you get 12, come back and I'll show you what to do next. So I've gotten here, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, so there is one more gap here that you can kind of see, but our chain 3 at the beginning is going to act as the stitch for that spot. So I'm actually going to undo a couple of my stitches here. So here I ended with my 12th double stitch. I'm going to go ahead and chain 2. And then I'm going to do just what we did last time where we go underneath that first stitch. And I'm going to pull through to complete the loop. So to start the next row, we are going to chain 3 again. And then we're going to do, hang on, I need more yarn. Okay, making a mess. We are going to double stitch into this first gap once, and we're going to do a second double stitch into the exact same gap. So now we have 2 double stitches right next to each other in the same hole. Next, we're going to chain 2 again, and then we're going to double stitch into the next hole. And this time, the holes are a lot easier to find because of the 2 chained stitches we did last time. So I did 2 double stitches into this hole here. Now I'm going to chain 2, and then do a double stitch into the next hole. And then I'm going to do another double stitch into that same hole. I'm going to do it one more time. So I'm going to double stitch. Then I'm going to, I messed up. Sorry. I chained 2 here. So I chained 2 stitches, and then I'm going to, well, I'm not going to do that because that's wrong. Okay, let's try that again. I'm going to double stitch into this hole here. And then I'm going to double stitch again. You know, guys, it's okay to make mistakes, especially when you're learning something new. And even if you have made something a bunch of times, it's okay to make mistakes. It happens to the best of us. But we're going to go ahead and continue this 2 double stitch, chain 2, 2 double stitch, chain 2, all the way around until we get here. Leave one gap open because I'm going to show you what to do once we get there. So, I got a fun story. I have always been really bad at crocheting. My mom taught me how to crochet when I was young. She learned from her grandmother, and she decided to teach me, and I was always horrible at it. I could never keep like the lines straight, and they always like looked like an hourglass. They just never worked out right, and I got frustrated with it, and I just decided I couldn't crochet, and I was like, that's fine, I'll just forget about it. Then quarantine hit and I didn't know what to do, and I was stressed all the time, and I was like, you know, maybe now is the time in my life where I'm supposed to learn how to crochet. So I crocheted a pot holder, and for the first time in my life, I was able to crochet a square without all the lines being totally messed up. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I can do this. Maybe this isn't that bad. And then I started making coasters because I figured that was an easy next step forward. So I started making coasters. And I ended up making so many of them that I don't know what to do with them all. And here I am, still making more coasters. All right, So here I am at this last hole. I'm going to chain 2, like I've been doing. And I'm going to go ahead and do 1 double stitch into this hole. Okay, and then I'm going to do what I've been doing, and I'm going to take this first stitch that we did and just pull it over to this one. So I'm going to hook underneath and pull them together. And then, oh no, okay. Now we're getting this nice semblance of a coaster. So if you wanted, you could theoretically stop here and just leave your coaster like this, just a nice beautiful circle. If you want to make it with the little scalloped edge, then you're gonna wanna do this last step. So we're gonna chain 3. And then we are going to, if you look, you can see here where all of our 2 double stitches are. We're gonna go ahead and go straight into, in between these 2 double stitches. And we are just going to pull through both loops. So it ties it down a little bit. And that's gonna be our end marker for our scalloped edge. So then to start the next scalloped edge, we are going to do a double stitch into this hole here where we had chained the 2. So we're going to go ahead and do a double stitch in there, maybe, if I can. Okay, I got it. We're going to do our double stitch in there. Then we're going to go ahead and do a second double stitch into the same gap. I need more yarn. Then we're going to go ahead and do a third double stitch into the same spot. I only did half that double stitch. There we go. There's the third double stitch into that same spot. And then we're going to go ahead and do a 4th double stitch into that same spot. We are going to stop at 4. I mean, you could do more, but at that point, if you do more, you risk putting too many stitches into one hole, and then your coaster will start to curl. So just be careful of that. I wouldn't go more than 6 stitches into this hole here. And then we're going to go ahead and just put the needle straight through the double stitches from the last row that we did, hook the needle, and pull through. And then it ties it down and it creates this nice, beautiful scalloped edge. So we're going to go ahead and continue to do that. So into the next gap, we're going to double stitch once, double stitch twice, double stitch 3 times, and we're going to double stitch a 4th time. And then we're going to go ahead and go between the double stitches from the last row and tie off the scalloped edge. So you can see how we're going around. I'll show you one more time. So double stitch into this gap here. Once. Twice. 3 times. My ball of yarn made an appearance. Okay, and 4 times. We're gonna go between these 2 and tie it off. So continue that my God, I can't talk. Okay, the rest of the way around. And then once we get to this gap here, I will show you what to do. You know, I go to school for photojournalism, and a lot of photojournalism is video and editing nowadays. And every time I do it, I always think I'm gonna screw it up. Both my cameras stopped recording. I was watching this one, so at least I know that it was close to the end. Okie dokie. So I've made it here. Oh! I am tying down my last stitch. You can see now we have just like weird little spot here where there's a small little one that we made but didn't really make. So what we're gonna do is we are going to go ahead and chain in here. And if you cover some of these loops, that's totally fine. So we're going to double stitch once. You can see I've covered it a little bit, but that's okay. So double stitch once into this hole, double stitch a second time into that hole, and we're going to double stitch a third time into this hole. So you can see now our chain 3 has kind of been covered up a little bit, but that's okay. So what we're going to do to finish this off is we're going to, if you pick up what's remaining of the chain 3 here, you can see there's a little hole underneath. It's a little hard to see. I'm going to try to stick my finger in there for you to see it. There's a hole here that you can see. Can you see it? Nope, I'm being dumb. Okay, here we go. You can see it here. So we're gonna go ahead and stick our needle through there. I'll use the needle to push my finger out. And then we're going to just hook our yarn and pull it through both. And pull it down tight. So you can see that it makes it look just like any of the other little loops. So to finish this off, we're going to take our scissors and we are going to, I like to pull maybe like 2-3 inches of yarn here away from the coaster. And we're just gonna snip that off. Now with this tail, we are going to hook our needle around it and just pull the entire tail of the yarn through. And it's going to create a little knot there. Now you can leave it like that. I like to just double secure it. So I create a loop and I take the end of the tail and stick it through. And then I take this and I push it all the way down until it's against my coaster here. And then I hold it there and pull the tail until it's totally tight. And then you have like a little knot there. So then what you can do is take your scissors, trim off the tail, and tuck the knot underneath. Tucked it underneath the stitches a little bit. I just kind of pushed it out and under. So then I'm going to turn this over and trim the tail off of that side. And look at that. It's a nice, beautiful coaster. Wow. Wow. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, subscribe. Hit that like button. Let me know in the comments what you want me to do next. And if you try and make coasters, my social media is linked below. Send them to me. I'd love to see what you guys are making. But until next week, goodbye.